sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Good morning, ASEAN. Welcome to the ASEAN Breakfast Call this morning. Today is the 18th of March. And we have two guest hosts with us today.
Hi, morning. Well, still here in the studio.
Hi, this is Adrian Yu.
Well, what are you going to say about that? Just simply,
Yeah, good morning, ASEAN. This is a great morning in Kuala Lumpur, and it's for the first time I wake up without smelling smoke in the air.
For the first time? Is that in my entire life you wake up in the smoke?
Yeah. I think that we have a very goofy guest host with us this morning.
Goofy.
When we were trying to talk about the news, they were talking about Captain Planet and cartoons and what? Ultraman.
Yeah, you know why we talk about Captain Planet? Because today we're going to talk about the environment, preserve and so on, right? So that's our topic today.
That's right. Besides Captain Planet, we also touch about on this Malaysian produced Upin and Ipin that has been sweeping the Indonesian and Malaysian market in a big way. And if you have any comments on that, do let us know.
Yeah, but seriously, is it shipping the Indonesia?
Yeah, it is. It's very big in Indonesia as well.
Yeah, it's been translated to many languages.
Yeah, that's true. It's been franchised to different market as well. But Indonesia is a very natural market. A very simple check on the Upin and Ipin Facebook page. It's one of the highest in the region, actually.
Wow, that's a proud of Malaysia. We should be proud about that.
And then let's start today with some environmental news from the region, yeah? So the first news comes from the Irrawaddy. It's for the love of the lake. So what happens is that Inli Lake, which is a freshwater lake that's located in the township of Taung Yin in
Shan State.
Yeah, in Shan State of Myanmar. It is actually the second largest lake in Myanmar. And what happens is that right now, instead of like in the past where you could actually drink the water in the middle of the lake, and you could even swim, and then there were a lot of abundant of fish. Now they are having a lot of a drought, and then the size of the lake has even shrunk to 1/3 of its size. So this is a result of deforestation, and also several years of poor rainfall. So because of that, one of the Buddhist pilgrimage site, which is normally accessible by boat, has now turned to be smack in the middle of a virtual wasteland.
Well, is it still drinkable for the water? Or if they drink it in the middle of the lake, you're going to die there someday?
Well, we don't know, but we know that now a lot of researchers are researching the drop in water quality. We don't know if it's still drinkable or not. But they're collecting water samples.
Yeah, to me, it's quite I cannot imagine how they drink water from the lake, because from our time, we never do so. Have you tried that? I mean, even not only from the lake. Any one of you tried that?
By the way, Adrian is also nicknamed Captain Planet in Malaysia, so we'll let Captain Planet tell us.
Well, traditionally we normally drink, get our water source from running water, as it says, to avoid
Traditionally?
Yeah, as in that we always take water from running sources like a flowing river or a replenishing well. We very seldom get our drinking water, consumable water, from a stagnant source, which is like a lake or a.
It's easier to get contaminated, isn't it?
Germs and bacteria do tend to love these places because it's lack movement and constant warmth in that place. So it's not common to get drinking water from there, but probably the sides of the lake. Maybe.
But it depends on the water sources. If coming from a well, from the under.
Well, will be a replenishable sources.
It's considered as replenishable.
Yeah, that's right. It's groundwater. It is fresh.
Yeah.
And similarly, another environmental news is also the Tan Wing Dam projects in Myanmar. So 130 or more civil society organizations and political parties have actually signed a petition calling for an immediate stop to the dam projects in the river that's also known as Salween. So this is according to a news from Myanmar Rivers Network yesterday. So the Salween is actually one of the world's largest rivers, and it's the lifeblood of millions of Myanmar people. So now they want to add 6 dam projects that will generate 15,000 megawatts of electricity. So this would pose a threat to the future of the local residents and biodiversity. So it's said that most of the electricity goes to China and Thailand, but the negative impacts of the dams will impact the living conditions and livelihood of all the residents that's affected in those areas. So I think now in ASEAN countries there's a general trend of
building up dam.
Like maybe exploitation of foreign investors towards the lack of a lot of infrastructure or environmental standards that we don't have set yet. And this is like, for example, in Malaysia there is Linus factory.
But sometimes you need development. How are you going to like getting the I don't know how to put it that way, because if you want the development and somehow on the other hand you want to preserve the environment, preserve the forest, it's quite hard for you to balance it, isn't it? Just look at the way in Sarawak. Okay, I totally don't agree to have building up the 9 or more than 10 dams there.
There's 12 mega dams.
12, right?
Yeah.
So what's the purpose for building up the 12 dams there? Is that really increase the profit or maybe the
I think
income of the government?
Yeah, the supposed use was, the 600% of increase of energy is to fuel the renewable energy industries that they want to start up in Sarawak.
Serious?
Yeah.
Okay, but how many percent that they'll be, from the energy they produced, being used back to the society, to the citizens? Are they selling it somewhere else? And where the profit, after they got it, where they used to be?
Well, I think the argument about energy in this region is all about where do we get our sources. No doubt, electricity energy sources is vital in any growth of any country. For example, let's take Sarawak. For example, Sarawak has have been all this while been the lost child, abandoned child in Malaysian's development. Finally, we are getting some highlights on the country. Not country, sorry. It used to be a country. A highlight on this state in Malaysia.
Not state as well. Equal partners.
Equal partners.
They're
sorry.
not the state.
Okay.
According to Malaysia agreement.
Serious. I think I agree with that statement. I'll prefer to use that.
Equal partner in forming Malaysia.
Okay.
So now they're building more energy sources, but the question is, what are they gonna sacrifice in terms of this exchange for the growth and energy? Are we sacrificing biodiversity? Are we sacrificing culture of local tribes, or are we sacrificing the abundant resources of undiscovered biochemical discovery that is probably the next cure for cancer? So there's a lot of argument that dams and hydroelectricity is one of the cleanest or less carbon intensive energy production. But in overall, when you drown a area size of Singapore in the middle of a virgin rainforest, it's equivalent to emitting tons and tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So it's equally bad as bad as a coal-fired plant itself.
But I think a lot of things that's driving all this building of dams and whatnot, like for example, if we pull in another news piece from Malay Mail, it is talking about how ASEAN is not learning from the Fukushima disaster, but it seems like Vietnam nuclear plants are on the way, and that's the result of feeling the effects of electricity shortages. So it has to feel its industries and economic development. So how do you Adrian, how do you counter that? They would say that, unfortunately we just have to.
Well, my personal comment or my personal view on nuclear power plant is like trying to get on a diet while smoking, or trying to reduce your weight by smoking. You are not actually addressing the energy issue. You are actually creating a bigger issue down the road. You may get the energy today, but you are being left with the radioactive waste, a legacy of radioactive waste for the 10,000 years. So for a normal lifespan of a nuclear power plant is probably about 30 to 40 years, but you've been left with the waste of 10 million years. How do you manage it? How do you store it? How do you keep the waste from intact, from not being decontaminated or leak into the environment? Just like what we are seeing in Fukushima, a highly first world country known for its scientific and technological developments, still unable to contain or handle the Fukushima disaster as we ongoing Fukushima disaster. How many years have we anniversary of Fukushima? Third year?
Yes, third. 11th of March.
This is the third year, and we've just celebrated the anniversary of the Fukushima disaster.
I think we shouldn't celebrate it
because we need to remind ourselves that this is an ongoing disaster. It's not a case closed yet. Radiation is still emitting from the power plant.
Exactly.
Radioactive contaminated water is still leaking into the ocean. So there's no way that we can, there's no end to this problem actually.
Yes, if that's the case, I have the questions. Why, since we know that they got so many side effects of the nuclear plant, why we still want to build that instead of we getting or harnessing the solar power or maybe some kind of the replenishing power? Why the countries such as the United States or maybe the Russia, they don't develop that and try to push it or maybe promote it to the other country? Why we still want to stick to the nuclear power plant?
Well, the first nuclear renaissance, it's in the 1960s and 1970s where both the superpowers of USA and Russia was rushing towards nuclear arms and also nuclear power plants. And ever since then, we have seen a big, huge drop in nuclear take-up power up until recently as recent as 2010s. So it was being much led by countries like China and India. Reason being, both countries have already breached 1 billion population, and their hunger, their demand for energy is just overseed any power source that they have. That they can't rely on coal, they can't rely on hydro, they can't rely on although they are now China is already the biggest investor and producer of solar and also wind energy in the world. It's already
and biggest investor of renewable energy.
Exactly, but there's still not enough energy for their own consumption. So in the last 10 years, both countries have invested a lot of nuclear power plant. So back to the question of why do we still need it? There's a question in the climate change community which is still inconclusive, that we have this study where we are saying that if you were to wipe out all the coal-fired plant today to reduce the carbon emission, we are still unable to meet our targets of a safe climate future. The only way forward is claimed by some parties. The only way forward is to have nuclear power plant to supply so-called cleaner fuel, but with the sacrifice of 10,000 years of radioactive waste. But the other side of camp is that saying that, hey, we don't need this so-called radioactive fuel, but we can reduce our consumption, reduce our energy addiction, and also further promote our renewable energy. So there's two sides of this argument is still going on in the climate change community.
I see.
But some updates from Japan, though, is that during the very recent elections last month to choose a new governor for Tokyo, eventually they settled for a pro-nuclear governor. And also, Vietnam, who's serious about its nuclear plans, has signed an agreement with the United States, namely President Barack Obama, who have approved of a new bilateral deal which will allow America to sell nuclear fuel and technology to Vietnam. And they are also in talks with Japan and Russia. So what we are worried about in ASEAN though is that if this Vietnam nuclear plant do come up, and in Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand, where national plans to go nuclear have been installed because of the Fukushima disaster, once Vietnam starts again, maybe all these other countries will probably revisit their plans and start to compete. So we definitely need to see more regional cooperation in Southeast Asia on nuclear safety issues. So since it's still in its infancy.
But if you're talking about cooperation between the country, I don't think it's easy to achieve because everyone want to just get their own profit. They just covered. If this thing, like this kind of the project, there will be benefit more to the country. Of course, they wouldn't let you to just simply block my agenda or block my anything I want to do. I want to proceed, isn't it? So I don't think it's easy to get this cooperation, mutual agreement to be done.
Well, it's not that far off. What we are seeing in the big state of USA and also EU, what we are seeing is that this smart grid, what we are calling the smart grid, where inter-governments, inter-countries their power grids are connected. Means if Malaysia we have produced excess energy, I can sell it to Thailand or I can sell it to Singapore, vice versa. This is a great plan moving forward, but realistically, ASEAN as a bloc, we are still a long way from being there.
Yes.
We first have to establish a economic bloc. Then we have to move on to become one community. Then only probably this is possible because of this geopolitical sensitivity is still quite not settled among the members of ASEAN.
Yes.
The advantage of smart grid in ASEAN is eminent. It's very good because countries like Indonesia, they are sitting right at the rim of the Pacific Fire Rim. So they are rich with geothermal potential. Geothermal is one of the cleanest and the easiest to harvest energy, where you just pump cold water down deep into the near the heat source. The hot water will boil and it shoots up and turns a turbine, and it's virtually carbon emission free, and it's so much potential around Indonesia. If this smart grid were to be established, Indonesia can be powering the whole of ASEAN easily. But we still need to solve some of the geopolitical sensitivity at the point in time.
So now moving on to Cambodia, from the Cambodia Daily, we have a news article talking about Pol Pot's daughter who is going to marry in Cambodia. So for those who doesn't know, Pol Pot is the leader of the Khmer Rouge.
Some people say he was the killer, isn't it?
So under the Khmer Rouge regime, there was at least 10 of thousands of, we don't know the actual number, but there are a lot of people who were massacred, they say, in one of their social engineering scheme, yeah? So
social engineering scheme.
Yeah, and that includes a marriage scheme where tens of thousands of men and women were forced to marry people that they have never met in mass ceremonies. And so relationships were tightly controlled by the party, and then couples often are separated shortly after the marriage. So you are matched, with who you are going to marry.
Why they want to do that? Is that they will try to control their children or their future generation?
If you know what happened during Khmer Rouge, they were also systematically trying to exterminate intellectuals.
Yes.
So this is probably part of their social engineering scheme.
Yeah, if they want to do that, they will just rather don't marry them or match them to any other.
No, they want a population, but they also want a population that would not challenge them.
So that's making a serious issue.
I wonder if that's the correct interpretation of communism, though.
I don't think so, because communism is a different idea of this, but this is more. I think it's even cruel Because just imagine that you've been matched up with someone that you don't know, but you have to just, spend your entire life with someone that probably it cannot get well with you for your entire life. Right, so I think that's not only the issues, and of course, I mean they have some hidden agenda behind that. The objective is try to get eliminate your what you call it, your own rouge. I'm not sure that's the things.
Although in India or a lot of tradition in Asia countries, actually arranged marriage is pretty common.
Arranged marriage is different. This is a different kind of the idea, I guess. I mean, this is forced too. But the arranged marriage, this for example in China, I think they used to have this long ago in ancient China. But at least it's not with the mean that you have to be together with someone that you really hate, or maybe with the government's kind of the agenda behind it, you know. So I think it's totally different. But do you don't mind on that? You mean? Just imagine what's happened to you. If this has happened to you, what are you going to be?
Because some of the argument for arranged marriage was that you are taught to be just contented and also cherish whatever you have instead of desiring for this and that and so
you are easy adapt to anything, right? You can easily adapt to any kind of the conditions.
No, it's not that. It's just that I feel that there might be some value in what the traditions of.
Okay, just tell me what kind of value you can get from here.
No, it's a kind of a devotion and commitment. If you know in India, where if your husband die, it's considered okay for you to
remarry.
No, not remarry. Like die as well. Like
what?
You would, if you've seen those
together with
the Bollywood movies, they would actually jump into the fires to be burned together with their husband.
Well, to me, it's not a beautiful story.
It's valuing beyond yourself. So it's valuing a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, I think that's a different kind of value.
Yeah, but anyway, in this communist marriage of Pol Pot's daughter, which is Sar Pachata, I think the important message that we should learn from this is that, for example, like Miss Pachata, she was actually separated from her father and adopted by a diplomat who has served as an aide to Pol Pot and ambassador to the UN. So the key message is that in Cambodia, they often have the mind to accuse one generation in connection with the older generation. But now we should learn that we should never ever inherit the kind of whether is it historical atrocities that was done by older generation up to the younger generation. I think that's the key message.
Yeah,
we should learn to forgive and also move on.
And I think that's a good thing, especially to those who are facing any big tragedy in their life, have to learn to forgive and move on. I think the most important is not only forgive, but move on. If you just learn forgive, you're not moving on, you just stay on the pot and itself, I think you'll be facing a serious kind of the depressions.
And similarly, at Cambodia, we now have another news piece from Cambodia Daily as well, talking about unions, labor unions, who's filing complaints against their leaders for cheating away money that was supposed to be compensated for the workers. But rather what happened is that CCAWDU, which is a labor organization in Cambodia, the leaders have embezzled money that was meant to be paid for the workers in compensation after a dispute with factory owners. So instead of getting a settlement of 3,000 to 4,000, eventually the workers that was involved was only getting 1,002 to 2,700.
I think it's quite common, isn't it? This kind of cases. It's happened anywhere, not only in the ASEAN country, not only in Cambodia or Malaysia, anywhere.
But what is meaningful about this story is that eventually, there was two very good men in the labor unions who filed the complaint when they were actually offered higher salaries to keep the corruption under wraps. So instead, they decided to take the case to court.
I should give him a few more likes.
A few more likes.
That's a Facebook terms, right? Likes. That's good. Serious. It's not everyone dare to do so, and of course you just don't care about what's the benefit that others give you, but you try to do something good, something right.
So wherever institution you are in, be it labor unions, be it the government, be it NGOs, be it just normal everyday citizen, do speak up because you will make a difference.
Yeah, but it's not easy because everyone tends to just keep quiet, keep silence, and just because nothing to do with me, right? That's his problem. It's not my problem. This is what normally ASEAN's people were having, that kind of the thought in their mind. But how should we promote that? How should we make the people have the gut to voice out, to say out something they think is not right? It's not easy, right? But what should we do? Through the
So some values of thinking beyond yourself is important.
Yeah, I know, because if you just simply talk about this is important, but how you're going to implant this in their mind, it's not easy.
Just be the change yourself first.
Be the change. I always be the change. But yeah,
Is it?
Yeah, I voice out lots of things and even cause myself into trouble sometimes.
So we have a good man in the organization.
I'm not a good man, I'm a bad man. Yeah, I'd rather be a bad man.
Okay, Batman. So let's fly to Manila now. From the Manila Bulletin.
I want to go to my Gotham City.
Gotham City. Yeah, but now we have Singapore City, who is frowning at Filipino construction workers. So Filipinos in Singapore consist of migrants from the Philippines and their descendants, and approximately 80,000 works as domestic helpers and another 12,000 works in the IT industry. So with Singaporean actually tried to vent out frustrations online over the plan of the PAP, the People's Action Party government, to recruit 200 Filipino construction workers last month. So they're calling Filipinos workers as the latest cheap labor fad. Yeah, so
sounds bad.
I think what is in hand is that there's a lot of issues of more developed countries in ASEAN looking down upon citizens from other countries who come to work as second class, as someone that's unworthy of being treated equally. What do you guys think?
I don't know. In Malaysia, how the media going to put that foreign worker? They use the terms "wai lao." You know, it means that if someone is a laborer from the foreign label, it's not foreign worker, foreign label.
It's like outsider.
Yes,
yeah.
It's even worse than that. It's not only outsider.
Yeah, it's like outside labor.
A second or the third class of.
I would like them to be called expats, actually.
Yeah. What do we call them? Some people expats and some people like.
You see that's a problem. How we differentiate or classify this is expat and this one is the foreign worker or foreign laborer. You see. So it's not fair.
I think back to this news on the Singapore government and trying to bring in Philippine migrant workers into Singapore. It's very interesting because I think it comes in the back of the news where they have recent issues with the Chinese and also the Indians workers that's causing trouble to Singapore recently. We have heard of there are too many complaints about the Chinese population in Singapore, and also now recently the Indian riots that happened over some small minor issue about the bus. But will bringing in more Philippine workers into Singapore, will this solve the problem? I doubt so, because I just had a chat with my Philippines friends over the weekend that they were saying that before this there were actually a freeze of bringing passes for Philippines workers into Singapore. You can only replace them, you cannot increase the population. But this news of 200 new workers, new passes being given out is interesting.
I think they prefer to get Malaysian labor. They always said Malaysian is still the best. Yeah, because we speak multi languages, and then of course the other thing is that we are hardworking. I don't know. This is based on some Singapore friends that told me that. Yeah, the bosses or the entrepreneur prefer to hire the Malaysian citizens rather than the other countries. Yeah, and someone is quite close, just neighbor.
Maybe it is because culturally and historically, and also bloodline wise, we're closer to them.
Yeah, this is what we call the neighborhood.
Yeah, but we're also seeing a lot of Singaporeans who can't afford to buy a house or a place to live in Singapore itself. Many are buying houses in Johor Bahru and doing the daily commute into Singapore itself.
Yeah.
So we are seeing an increase of Singapore ownership of properties in and around JB itself.
I wonder how many Malaysians have been invaded to Singapore. I saw you to use the word invaded.
I don't know.
No, all I know is there was one morning I was taking a bus from KL to Singapore.
Yeah.
It surprises me that
It's all Malaysian, right?
About 3 a.m.
Yeah.
it was jammed, you know. Yeah. It was bumper to bumper, and I've never seen so many people in the morning. It's like a few million people.
Few million.
I would think so.
That's
if you
incredible.
look at the whole causeway and the number of buses there.
So it means the whole Singapore.
Maybe not few million, but definitely a lot. I'm not good in quantifying, but a lot.
That's seriously incredible. Just imagine that half the population of Singapore is from Malaysia.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
If they all left Singapore, what's going to happen to Singapore?
Well,
the economy.
I would not say it's a population. I would say it's a workforce. The workforce will be very highly dependent on at this point in time foreign workers in Singapore. Definitely, Malaysian make a big part of it.
But another question arises: why Malaysian just simply like to go to Singapore? Is it because Singapore, their regulations or maybe the development is, of course, much better than Malaysia? But is that because of the the currency exchange, or any other issues that making the Malaysia prefer to choose Singapore rather than stay in Malaysia? Yeah, to contribute.
Probably is a good question to our listeners who are listening in from Singapore and working. Malaysians is working in Singapore, you can either message us.
Probably have some message.
Tell us what you think about
why you choose to go to Singapore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because what we do know is that there is a huge developmental gap where the GDP of both countries seems to be, or is it per capita? It's almost double. That's why people prefer to. I mean, if I had 1 hour, why don't I earn double for an hour?
The other problem is that those who went to Singapore, or they still stay in Singapore, they're having some negative perceptions about Malaysian government. They don't like the Malaysian government. They said, okay, Malaysia is bad or whatever, Singapore is good. So just simply press that Singapore is better than Malaysia. I don't know what kind of the feeling.
Well, I've heard equal shares of stories on PAP's government in Singapore.
We hear equal shares too.
Right.
But anyway, you can definitely post us some questions on Facebook and interact with us during the live show in the future.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So moving on to an economic business topic, it's that Facebook is now targeting 4 key segments for growth in the Asia Pacific. So they bought 5-year-old WhatsApp, as we all know, for 19 billion in February, right? So now they're planning to grow in Asia. Mainly because like we have covered before, in Asia and especially Southeast Asia, there's a huge trend for selfies. In fact, one of the top 10 countries in the world, many of them are from Southeast Asia. And now they're targeting Thai's love of mobile. And they're also targeting how it's also the top, it's the second, city in the world to have Instagram pictures being posted. And so that they share a perspective that it's a region of growth and engagement, and so
So, Adrian, wondering how much time you spend on Facebook a day?
A lot.
Countless, right?
Half of your time?
About there.
So you
What do you
waste-
do?
You're wasting your life on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Well,
You're dying away on Facebook.
well, look at it. Social media, it's fast becoming a more reliable, more trusted source of information. Just look.
Trusted source. Okay, I doubt with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, trusted in a sense that it's more efficient, it's more up to date, it's more not censored or unfiltered. Well, look at the recent case of the disappearing of MH370. We have seen the people are scouring the internet for news and updates, and although the Malaysian authorities have provided the daily or at some point a few hours a day press conference, but people are still looking towards social media for updates and insights of trying to understand what's happening. So I think the trend of this region is that because most of the countries in ASEAN's media, it's either directly or indirectly controlled by the state or by the government of the country, so they may not have this full trust on the state's media while they turn their source of information from the social media.
But that's causing another problem as well, because like you said, it's uncensored, and you can read everything and simply create anything on the Facebook and just distribute it. So this is having some rumors that's spreading around.
Yeah, it's just rubbish in, rubbish out. So yeah, the consumer or the consumer of this social media news have to be mature enough, have to be verify all the sources and make sure that they do not spread or participate in this rumor mongering that is happening around. Yeah.
So with now youngsters spending close to 80% or more, according to some research, of their waking hours on social networks, which is may not be too surprising. But okay, I have a few questions in mind. First, is it true that do you think that it's partly fueled by authoritarian regimes? That's why that people have to escape in the online space, that they trust news more in the online space by their friends and whatnot than the official news media, which we know that in certain authoritarian regimes it can be highly controlled. And
I do agree some part of it, but the other reason I think why people keep escaping and go to the virtual world, I think is because that's where they can prove themselves or being under the spotlight, because everyone is concerning and focused on what you are talking or you are sharing. So you become someone, you become the celebrity. So that's why they're making themselves like or addicted to be in the virtual world. I mean, this is another point of view. I'm not sure whether it's true. How true is it?
seeking fulfillment.
Yes, I think that's one of the reasons.
Okay.
Seeking attention.
Well, of course, the fast dissemination of information as well. I mean, of course, penetration of internet brings both the good and the bad, and everything comes in the package. You know, with all this penetration of social media into even rural areas of Myanmar and Thailand and Laos, this has brought them information and news that usually comes a month or two late to them, but now it's come instantaneously to people in the rural areas. I think these are some of the good things that we need to highlight as well.
But do you also think that it might be a disconnection between the traditional institutions and also what the rapid growth that is brought by technology, so that
Traditional institutions meaning?
By that I would also take it to another level, talking about democracy and how it might not be responsive to the people enough, that people are engaging in other methods to channel their vents, their frustrations.
Again, look at the recent how our Malaysian authority have handled the MH370. Our acting transport ministers have actively engaged on Twitter, on his Twitter, and he even set up on Weibo, a China social media account, just to communicate with the families and friends in China's community as well. So it's the race of getting into and engaging your audience in the social media. It's the The process is the same. You are communicating your message, but now what is different is just the medium. Last time you probably used TV or radio, now or newspaper, printed media, but now you're using social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Weibo, or anything, any new apps that come out tomorrow. It's just a medium, but the process is the same.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Sure.
We'll now have a short break and we'll see you after the break.